All right, welcome guys to the first training of the new year, 2025. I hope you guys had a good transition from last year to this year. And for those that took holidays, I hope you got some good rest. And yeah, we're gonna be kickstarting our training again, software testing bootcamp. My name is Darlington once again. And yeah, we've done quite a lot. During our last trainings, we've done a lot of, we actually dived into testing itself, started playing around with stuff. But now we're going to start going a little bit, gradually going a little bit deeper, focusing on different aspects of what we already talk about. Some of the things we're going to discuss are also going to be like a little bit of a repetition, but repetition because we want to focus more and and my goal is to make you guys really understand all the nitty gritty. And the topic for this third chapter will be called test planning and documentation. That's what we'll be focusing on. And a test plan and documentation, you can see that as your blueprint and record keeping tool for being uh, a successful software tester. So in this chapter, we'll be diving into two essential pillars of a successful software testing process. Like I mentioned, test planning and documentation. So you have to think of this as the blueprint and record keeping tool for the entire testing journey. Hold up, let me see if I can turn up my camera it so that the experience will be more personalized for you guys. Let me see, where is my camera? So that at least you guys will have a face to look at. Okay, I don't think my camera is working. Just give me a minute. Let's try that again. USB camera. Um, you guys can hear me now, right?
I can hear you.
Yes, good. So at least you guys will see my face. So, like I said, you want to think of this as your blueprint and your record keeping tool for the entire testing journey. Now, without test planning and documentation, it's easy to lose direction and miss important details. And that will also lead to wasting valuable resources. Now, effective test planning and documentation ensures that everything is actually done systematically and covering all necessary aspects and aligning perfectly with the project goals and requirements. So, without a doubt, test planning and test documentation is very, very important, right? So, why test planning and documentation? Why does it really matter? Now, test planning and documentation, they're not just nice to have, they are very critical for keeping the testing process organized, making sure that it's efficient and also keeping track. So these terms I'm using, I also want you to like visualize it. So we know what the word planning is, right? So planning is like you plan your stuff. You normally plan your day, and documentation means you document uh, the processes you want to take. So, just put that into testing. Just understand that, okay, before you start testing any new stuff or testing a whole software, you want to have a test plan and you want to have a documentation, right? So these terms, I want you to put it in in your vocabulary, your test vocabulary, test planning, test documentation, and we're gonna what I'm trying to do is to break it down so you understand what it is, right? So here's what test planning and test documentation brings to the table. First, it brings clarity and focus. A well-defined test plan outlines what needs to be tested and how. Now, this clarity keeps your team focused on testing objectives and ensures no critical areas are overlooked. So, very important, clarity and focus. Second point is why it matters is it brings it manages risk. Now, a detailed test plan helps to identify potential risk early. This allows you to address them proactively. Now, it also ensures that high risk areas receive attention, reducing the chances of issues arising. So, while I talk about this, I want you to visualize a software. So, we're going to be using the enquete.com as our case study. So, just think about it. Before we start testing, you write a test plan, and risk management is one of the things. So, you're like, okay, instead of just diving in to start writing tests, let me write a plan. How what are the things that need to be tested? What do I need to think about? And one of the things that test planning and documentation will help you do is identify potential risks early. Um, what when we talk about risk, do you guys know what could be a risk? What you could categorize as a risk that test planning uh, could identify? If you know, you can raise your hand. It doesn't matter. There's no wrong answers. So, what could be a risk that you feel like, okay, when we plan early, in general, but just think of it, yeah. In general, when you plan for something, you also spot potential risks, right? So let's go to something a little bit. Let me bring something back home because I want these terms to make sense to you guys. So let's think about wedding planning, right? So you don't just when you have a wedding, right? Or you have a wedding to go to, or you're the one that's gonna do a wedding. So I have some single people in the house. I have Obi is gonna get married pretty soon. Ifan is gonna get married pretty soon. Constance is gonna get married pretty soon. How soon I don't know. They're gonna tell us at some point. But we also have some married people. So think about it now. You're gonna get married, right? The date is I don't know. Let's pick a date. 1st of July. Do you just start buying stuff? I'm like, okay, I'm gonna buy this. I'm gonna buy that. I'm gonna buy drinks without a planning. That's unlikely, right? So when you plan for that wedding, what are the risks that plan will help you find out early? So let's go around because now we're using a realistic example. So I'm sure you guys can think of something. So if you plan for your wedding instead of just going out and just buying things, I'm like, yo, I have a wedding. When you plan for it, what are some of the risks that planning will help you identify? All right, let's see, Chinoso.
It can help you identify ways to save money, like to reduce financial risks.
Reduce financial risks. Okay, true, true. Um, but I also want you to think about what could have gone wrong that had it been you didn't plan for it, you wouldn't have seen it early. Just think of something that probably would have gone wrong or potentially will go wrong. Obi,
Yeah, so maybe you have to plan for the population you're expecting, the amount of people you're expecting for the wedding. So you have to also plan for the food. So if you don't have enough food available, then the food will not go around in
good.
your wedding. So that is something you want to
So
avoid.
risk of the fact that food might not be enough. When you plan, it forces you to think, oh, I'm expecting 600 people, so we have to have 600 food. Good one. Constance.
You should also plan how you want your wedding to look like, so that you know what to get instead of just buying anyhow, and then your wedding will look, a bit
Okay.
crazy.
So what is the risk that you will be preventing then? Because risk means something would go wrong. What could go wrong then in this analogy?
It could be unorganized.
Un,
The whole wedding
okay,
could be
unorganized.
unorganized if you don't
All
plan
right, good,
correctly.
good, good. Let's take one more. If I
Okay, the risks of having people you don't intend to invite.
Yes. And how would you mitigate that risk, for example?
Maybe having some security at the gates, making sure people have their invitation before they
Exactly.
enter.
So thank you. So all the answers are very good, but you see that when you start planning, all of a sudden you start realizing some of these things, right? You're like, oh yeah, security is important so that we don't get unwanted people. Oh, how many people are we expecting? But if you don't sit down and plan, you just oh let's buy. I need a caterer. Caterer, come in. Take invitations because you didn't sit down and plan. So it's the same thing. When it comes to testing, when you have your test plan read it out first, it automatically starts making you think. Do you understand? It automatically starts making you think of things that could go wrong, and then you identify them. For example, I'll give a straight example. One of the things that could go wrong, for example, if one of the questions you probably will ask is, okay, when will this software be available for testing? When will the developers be done? And the developers are like, oh, it's going to be done on the 1st of July. Let's use the same date as the wedding. It's going to be done on the 1st of July, right? And then you're like, but on the maybe okay, let me change it. Let's say on the 4th of July, it's gonna be ready on the 4th of July, and we have to start testing on the 4th of July. And you'll be like, wait, but the 4th of July is, I'm just assuming everybody's living in America, but the 4th of July is a holiday. So, guys, we cannot test on the 4th of July because the office is closed. You get it? So, because of there's a planning, you can identify things that could go wrong. Like, yo, the business wants us to release the 4th of July, but 4th of July, or for us to start testing the 4th of July, but 4th of July is a holiday. Then if it's in Nigeria, I don't know when the independence of Nigeria is, but I'm just using that example on holiday of 25th of December. So you've identified things. You can also identify things within the your software infrastructure. It could be like, okay, you want us to release, but you want us to finish this testing by, I don't know, by the 1st of February, but we have only one developer. Only Darling is the developer. Sorry, we cannot make it. So you see, you spot those kind of potential because how can you finish a software in 1 week? Because this is now is the 18th. In the next 1.5 week, we have to launch Enquete and test it, but we have only one developer in the team. So sorry, we cannot. Then you have to go back to the business and business. Oh, see, we have to hire more developers. We have to hire more developers because we cannot meet it up. So just trying to bring it home. All right, so the next one will be resource allocation. So test planning helps allocate resources effectively, whether it's time, tools, or personnel. It ensures everything is in place and avoids bottleneck and allows team to work effectively. So it's the same thing. When you plan, you understand, okay, which resources do we have? Just like the wedding thing. Okay, we want to cook for 600 people, but you have only one cook. Come on. The moment you start planning, you're like, oh my God, we have 600 guests and we only hired one cook. That's not going to work. We have to hire what? More cooks. But if you don't plan, you might not know. You now know it on the last week. You'll be like, oh my God, where can we get more cooks? Oh my God, stress, blah, 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 blah. And that's because of poor planning. Traceability and accountability is another one. So a good documentation creates traceability matrix, linking requirements to specific tests. And this ensures that every requirement is tested and provides a clear record of what's been done and holds the team accountable. So you want to, with proper documentation, you already know, okay, this is what I'm going to name this test, test TC001. This test is linked to this requirement, and this test will be tested by team A. This test will be tested by team B, and because you plan it, you know who's doing what. It's the same thing with your wedding planning, right? You know that okay, in this wedding, uh, my family people will take care of the cooking and the serving. My husband's family is going to take care of buying drinks and renting a hall. That's it. So that at the end of the day, when you look at your test plan, you're like, oh, this is the people responsible for food. These are the people responsible for that. This food is done by this person, and that's what planning in general does. Just a minute, please. Nova, Nova, come on. Just a minute. All right. Try this one. All right. Sorry about that. So great. So we go to overview and documentation. So what does test planning and documentation involve? So test planning, first of all, a test plan is more like a roadmap to your testing process, right? It defines the test strategy, it defines the objective, it defines the scope and the resources. We're going to see a template of this, how it looks. And it also schedules and specifies testing activities, right? Now, proper test planning ensures that all software components are systematically tested and actually making sure that no stone is left unturned. What about the documentation part? Now, this includes test cases, it includes test scripts, it includes test plans, and traceability matrix. We are all going to see examples of how this looks like. So, a combination of all of these documents is what form your documentation. So, you have a test case, your test scripts, your test plans, your traceability matrix, right? Now, documentation also provides detailed information about the testing process, ensuring that there is clarity on what was tested and how it was tested and what the outcome actually is. Now, this training, what will be, oh, sorry. Yeah. So let's look at the structure of this chapter we'll be working on. So we just more or less started with a little bit of introduction, but what structure would this chapter take? So this is how we're going to break it down, right? We're going to have the first section, 3.1. We're going to be talking about components of a test plan. There, we're going to learn what goes into test plan. We're going to look at test scope, objective resources, and schedules. We're going to look at what goes into all of this. We're going to understand how to write test cases that clearly defines what to test and how to test it. So this we're going to discuss in section 3.1. Section 3.2, we're gonna is gonna talk about deriving test cases from requirements. How can you get test case when you get a requirement? How do you pluck out the test cases? We've played around with that more, but now we're gonna try to go deeper into it. So we're gonna discover techniques for analyzing requirements to create meaningful and relevant test cases. We're gonna learn how to directly link requirements to test cases for comprehensive coverage. In the section 3, which we'll be talking about creating and using traceability matrix. We're going to explore how to build and use traceability matrix to ensure all requirements are covered. And we're also going to learn how to track testing progress effectively. But this word traceability matrix, when you hear it, what does it make you think of? Does it even sound familiar? So first of all, raise up your hand if the word traceability matrix makes you think of something or if it's something you've never heard before. So first of all, raise your hand if it makes you think of something. Sorry, you can raise up your hand. I see Obi's hand up. I don't know if that's the former up or the new up. Okay, let me switch it the other way around. Raise up your hand if the word traceability matrix says tells you nothing. It doesn't ring a bell. So raise up your hand if it doesn't ring a bell at all. Okay. So I think Sumbo, it rings a bell for Sumbo and it rings a bell for Obi. Is that correct? Okay, good. So
Yes,
Obi
kind
raised
of.
up his hand. Okay, now take your hands down again. Let's break the words down. So if I use the word traceability, does it ring a bell? Raise up your hand if it rings a bell on anything. It doesn't have to be software testing on anything in the world, like the word traceability. Does it ring a bell? Okay. So we have almost everyone except Constance. Okay, good. Oh, also Constance, good. So everybody have heard of the word traceability in some context. Now let's move to matrix or matrices. If you know the word matrices has all rang any kind of bell or in any context, please raise up your hand. I see Obi's hand is raised up. Okay, good. All right, so I'm gonna pick just two people. I'm gonna pick some people to give us the context of these two words. Then we'll see. And the reason I'm doing it is so that it will be easy for you guys to remember. So traceability. Sumbo, you said you've heard the word traceability before. In what context? What does it make you think about?
When something can be traced, that's just the context I think about it. When you put when you connect something together and you
Good,
can
good,
trace
good,
it
good.
back to where it came
All right,
from.
let's go to the other word, matrix. Constance, did you raise up your hand on matrix or matrices? Okay.
No, I
Chinoso, did you raise
didn't.
your hands up for matrix or matrices? In what context do you know it, or what does it ring a bell? For, what does it make you think about? Nonso. Oh,
Just the movie Matrix. The
matrix.
ability to
Good,
make
good, good. Okay.
choices or something.
Right. Movie matrix. Good. Fine. What about you? That's a good one. We're gonna think about that. Sorry?
Matrix or traceability.
No, matrix.
Matrix or traceability. Like let's say the matrix to measure something. The matrix of uh maybe to measure let me see,
Yeah. Metric.
like the
Yep.
matrix
Yep.
to measure
Good.
something,
Good.
like I don't
So
know,
metric is more like what if I'm saying is metric is more like the steps to measure something. What are the things you have to do to measure something?
the
Good.
step.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. 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 Obi, do you have anything on matrix or matrices? Okay. So I'm
No,
going to
no, no,
bring
no.
Chinonso's idea out. Let's play around with it because my goal here is to make you guys have a mental picture of what this is. So matrix, Chinonso thought about matrix. So we all understand traceability. I think Sumbo said traceability. It's just yeah something you can trace. Yeah. So let's combine matrix, right? So when I think of matrix, think about something like this. So this is a very popular picture. I think anybody that looks at this always remembers the Matrix because I think the Matrix introduced it. So yeah, traceability matrix. Okay, good. So this is the Matrix. Yeah, zeros and ones going coming off the screen, and if I said metric is the the steps you have to take to calculate something. You understand? In terms, I think he's thinking more in mathematical context. So if you use the two, that means traceability, how to track or how to trace. And the second thing is the method. What method are you going to use to trace it? And if you look at this as well, for me, this picture is more like it can also give me a mental picture because it's just how, for example, if I want to get 1 0, how many zeros and ones do I need to pass? So just think about this as every of this line is a column. So if you look at it properly, you see it's just a column, 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 column. So what what path? So let me see if I can draw on my screen. So what path do I need to take? So I have 0, 0, 1, 1, 1, 1, whatever. I'm just doing whatever just to get to this zero. What path do I have to use to get here? Because these are all code. How many zeros, how many ones in between do I need to get to this point? So in some way, it's a mental. You can use that as a mental picture. Like, okay, I'm gonna. I'm just trying to use the analogy of Chinoso matrix and also that of Ifeanyi. So what steps can you use to trace something? You understand? So if you put that in your brain, it's gonna be like, okay, uh, uh, traceability metric. How can I trace something? What are the paths? What are the pre-planned paths that I have to use to trace where a test happened, what error happened, how it was fixed? Like you can trace it. You can be like, okay, it happened on the 1st of July. This team A picked it up. They didn't fix it until December, and this was the solution. This was the problem. As long and you can trace it, right? So that's just for me trying to put a mental picture in for you guys. So you can think about it like that. All right. Just give me a minute. Let me clear all of this. Oh, I think I just closed the share. Let's get that back up. Share. So, do you guys have any questions so far? Let me see. How do I even clear this stuff? Let me see. Clear should be somewhere here. I think. Clear. Good. Any questions? I will take it. I'll take that as a no since I'm not hearing anything. So traceability matrix. So tracing measurement or how to measure. What are the steps? So we go to the next one. Some of the things on in section 3.4, we're going to go on hands-on exercise. We're going to practice applying what we've learned with a sample requirement document, and we're going to develop test cases and create traceability matrix to simulate a real-world testing scenario. So these are all the stuffs we'll be um, we'll be dealing with in this uh, chapter. Let's see. Am I missing something? So uh, let me get rid of this. Great. So the key takeaway from this chapter, or what I would like you guys to learn at the end of this chapter, is first, you will be able to create detailed systematic test plan that aligns with your project goals. You're going to be able to write clear, effective test cases to guide the testing process. This is core stuff that you as a tester is going to do. Test plan, test cases. You're also going to be able to analyze requirements to ensure your test cases are relevant and comprehensive. That means when I give you requirements, you'll be able to look at it and just be able to extract requirements from it. You'll be able to build and use traceability matrix to track testing coverage and ensure that all requirements are tested. Nayeli, yeah, my daughter is just shouting behind me. All right, 1 minute. Nayeli, if you use your voice again, I'm going to turn it off. Look at me. Look at me. I said look at me. I'm going to turn it off if you shout again. Oh well. All right. So where was I? So and also you'll be able to apply your knowledge to practical exercises, reinforcing your skill in the real world scenario. So those are the things that this whole chapter will provide. So I would say let's get started. Let's move here. So in this section that will be going on, we'll focus on two critical tasks in software testing. We're going to focus on creating test plans and writing test cases. And these activities, of course, they're the backbone of successful testing process, making it possible that every aspect is checked systematically because that's what you want to be able to do and thoroughly as a tester. And by the end of this section, you should be able to feel confident in your ability to develop detailed test plan and writing effective test cases to guide your software testing efforts. So, what is a test plan and why is it important? So, first, think of a test plan as your testing roadmap. It answers key questions like the ones you see on the screen. So, remember, I always like to have a visual representation. So, roadmap, just give me a minute. Oh, sorry about that. All right, so let's see. If we talk about roadmap, right? So let's see what is a visual representation of a roadmap because I want you guys to have this stuff in your minds. So roadmap. A lot of you, if you've worked in a company, most companies have a roadmap. It's more like a global plan of things they're gonna probably do in a year. People have like most companies have like a year roadmap, a 5 year roadmap. And when you think about roadmap, you look at something like this, for example. So you think about something like this. First step, they're gonna do this. Next step, they're gonna do that. And mostly it's tied onto a specific time, maybe a date. Like in January, we're gonna work on this part, on this topic. You know, February, we're gonna do this. All of this, so that at every stage in the year or in a 5 years, you would know what you guys as a team is working with. So yeah, I think in most companies you definitely see some kind of roadmap, And if companies don't have a roadmap, they want to set it up, or they probably will plan to set it up because it gives them more like a focus to know, okay, this is where we are now, and this is where we are going, right? So I just want that word roadmap to make sense to you guys. So yeah, so test plan, we want to think about it like a roadmap. Your testing roadmap, it kind of gives you like a broader picture for like, okay, this is where I'm gonna start and this is where I'm gonna end, right? Now it also answers key questions like what you need to be, what needs to be tested. It also answers how will it be tested, who will be testing, and when will it be done. So you can imagine a roadmap like that. You have you have all these points all checked out. So let's also see. So we're here. So a well, let's go to the next one. So a well-crafted test plan ensures nothing important is missing and keeps the testing process on track. So we're going to break down some of the key components of a test process, or sorry, of a test plan. Now we start with the scope. Yeah. So the scope defines what will be tested and just how important it is, and also what won't be tested. There is more of a clear boundary that is created, making everybody focus on the right thing. So an example would be okay. First of all, let me ask scope. When we talk about scope, if someone says, "What is the scope of this project?" Do you guys understand that term, scope? Does it make any? Does it ring any bell? Have you heard that word before? Have you used it? Okay, I see Obi. Says I see Constance. Who else? Ifeanyi. Scope, scope. Okay, good. So everybody. So I'm going to ask just a few of you to, in what context or how do you understand the word scope? Uh, so let's start with Constance.
Scope means like the goal of the project, like everything that has to do for the task, what the project is
Okay,
for, what you have to do
okay,
for it,
good.
basically.
That is uh in some context, yes. So who else? Let me try Chinonso. So keep your answers in mind, huh? We're going to look at it. Chinonso, in what context?
Um, I think scope would
Okay.
be like the general
So if I
overview of
say,
the
what is the scope
project.
of this project? You mean to you, you understand what is the general overview of this project, right?
Yeah, what's the project would take,
Okay,
like
okay. So
different
let's
things
try
that will make up the
Sumbo.
project.
I can hear you, Sumbo. I think you're muted.
I
The
think
content
more
feels
like
very
the
similar to what
contents
Chinoso
of
is
the
saying. Good.
project. What does it
All
contain?
right, Obi, what does scope say to you? What does it mean if you say what is the scope of this project?
And that's to be like the area that this project is going to cover. It's going to entail everything that is going to be covered in the project
Okay.
and exclude the
All
things
right.
that they're
Very
not
good.
going to
Ifine,
touch.
you have anything?
Similar to Obi's, like the extent to like orange. We're like this is a boundary. We are this what we are doing.
So,
We are not doing this.
guys,
This we
in
are
general
starting.
terms,
This we are
so
stopping.
Chinoso, Constance, Sumbo, in general terms, yes, we use the word. What is the scope of this project? In general terms, it means okay, what needs to be done. That's how we understand what is the scope. But in testing terms, or in software engineering terms, when you ask of scope, scope means what do we need to concentrate on? That's what scope is. What are we concentrating on? So I'm gonna use a drawing to illustrate that. So take for example, this is the Enquete site. Say this is the Enquete app, right? Enquete. So you guys seen the Enquete app, enquete.com. and I ask your team, so you guys will be like the A team. So I'll say you guys are the A team. A team. My A team as of today is comprised of one, two, three, four, five testers. So you're the A team, and I asked the A team to write a test for enquete.com. Right now, the question is that could rise is okay. What is the scope? What is the scope of this test? This test you want us to test today. What is the scope? Then I'm like, okay, I only want you to focus on the login and registration page. Do you see? So this is the scope that I, as the the manager or whatever you want to call me, is saying focus on this. If I don't give you a scope, then it's kind of, you could argue that this is too big. We cannot tackle all of this now. So we have to create a scope. So in software terms, when people talk about scope, they are saying they are more or less saying that. Let me clean this off a bit. Go back, go back, go. So they are more or less saying what can we concentrate on in the. So we have the big picture and you scope it. Like what do we concentrate on? So yeah, that's how you should look at it. So if we go back to this point up here, a scope defines what will be tested, and just as sorry, it's sorry, it defines what should be tested and what should not be tested. So this should be tested, and this is not important. This side is not important at as of this test. Maybe on a later test, we're gonna bring out another scope, take another part, another test, we're gonna take another part, another test, we're gonna take another part, and that is called scoping. And scoping, or when you create the scope, creates clear boundaries that helps everyone know what they need to focus on. Now, an example of this will be, for example, let me just clear this out. An example could be, for example, you're testing the user interface, database interaction, you're performing load testing, but you will not be testing third-party integrations. That means you'll not be testing Facebook connecting to your app or testing Spotify connecting to your app, assuming those external services are connected to your software. But you are probably going to say, okay, this test is going to focus only on user interface, database integration, and performance tests. Everything outside, that's not what this test is about. So you see, that way you scope it. Because if you don't scope it, testers will just be trying to test everything and then you'll be out of time. Go, I'm busy, Bobo. All right. So that's what scope is. Now, um, another key component of a test plan is objectives. Now, the objectives are the specific goals of the testing process. They define what you aim to achieve. Now, an example of an objective would be verify that all features work as expected. That's your objective. Another example could be ensuring that the application meets performance standards, especially if performance is very important for the software. Identifying usability issues that affect user experience. So that is probably objective. So when you're writing your test plan, you'll be like, okay, this is my objective. This is what this test plan is going to help us achieve. You understand? So these are just examples of uh, what an objective could look like. Now, another key component is resources. Now, um, everything. Now, resources. An example of resources could be people. So that's what this test plan could help you identify. Just like we talked about the wedding planning thing. When you plan, you identify some of these things. How many cooks do you need to have? How many people needs to serve? So yeah, just the same way, test plan can help you identify resources. So when you talk about resources, you mostly talk about people, the team conducting the test. You talk about tools, what software or hardwares are required for testing, environment. Uh, when we talk about environment, we're thinking about platforms, operating systems, browsers, and stuff like that. So um, last time I mentioned, I used this term also, environment. Yeah. So if we remember, I created, let's see, if remember last time when we were testing the Pickaxe website, I told you guys that the test.pickaxe.com is what? My test environment. So I environment, let me try to draw it out so that maybe because I want everything to make sense to you for you guys. So in a typical in a typical software infrastructure setup, you might have something that looks like this. So let me give you guys a mental picture. Yeah. So this, for example, is a very popular uh, diagram you might see. This mostly represents database. You might also have something like this. They call it API, or it's more of a backend system. And then you have probably something like this that is called. No, let me just move some of this together. Just want you guys to get the mental picture, right? So you have this. This would be like API. I'm going to explain a little bit what this is, and this is probably your website. Website, right? So this is www, right? Now all of this stuff is hosted. I don't know if you guys understand what hosting is, but I'm going to ask in a minute. So it's hosted on, say it's hosted on, let's say server one, and you can access this server one from test.pigax. Let's use Pigax as an example because there's something there for you guys. Pigax.com. And then we have the same thing, a copy. So database, API, website, and this is hosted on server 2. So I'm going to say host on server 2. Sorry for my bad handwriting. And you can access this on pigax.com. Horrible, horrible handwriting, but let's just manage it. It's just for illustration purpose. So this thing you see here that I drew is what you refer to as an environment, because we have these three things. They are duplicates of each other. We have a database here. We have a database here. We have an API. An API is just basically, okay, let me explain how this works. So you have a website. Your website, whenever you register something or you click on a button that does something, it sends that data. Say, take for example, you log in. It sends your credentials, your login, and your password to what you call an API, and the API has some business logic. Business logic is it checks are you the real person, blah blah blah, and then checks if you exist in the database. If it finds you in the database, it returns the information from the database to the API. The API does some check. Are you a valid person? Are you a hacker? All those kind of checks are done. And then if you're not a hacker, it sends a response and then takes you to the login page. I mean to the next page, right? So this is just on a high level how most websites or softwares work. Now you have this same system here, and you put it also here. But if you take a look at the URL, this one is pickaxe.com. This is the one everybody goes to. Everybody knows that. Oh, I want to manage my pig farm. I go to pickaxe.com. This is what you call production. Production means it's out for people to use. This is what everybody knows. So this is more of in a tech uh, um, scenario, you will call this production environment. Production. So is the word environment that I want to make you guys to get used to. Production environment. So this whole box, which comprises of database, API, website, and is hosted on a server called server 2. And when you're on production, the only way for you to access this production environment is to go to pickaxe.com. So this is production environment. Then you also have this one that is called test environment. Test environment. And mostly testers test this application here first. So and you see, it's also hosted on a different server, but everything is the same in terms of infrastructure. So database is here, API is here, API is here, website is here, website is actually a replica, which is what you see here. So you see test.pickaxe.com is exactly a replica of, let's go to the other one. So if I open pickaxe.com, you see, it's a replica. It's pretty much the same thing. You see this? Test.com, test.pickaxe.com, but this one is pickaxe.com. It's a copy. But anytime I want to add a new feature to the production, which is pickaxe.com, which we have here, I first deploy it to the test environment so that my testers can test it here first. So let's go back to this guy. So when my testers test it in this environment, so this environment is called test environment. When the testers say, yes, we've tested it and everything is working based on requirement, everything is fine, then it is now deployed to the production. So whenever we talk about environment, we're talking about a server or a combination of servers that serve the resources. So resources are like database, API, all the stuff, the resources that replicates the original product. So this that's what that's what the environment is. But we also have production environments. So to go back to resources, I just mentioned that uh, uh, a test plan helps you to identify the resources that you need. So take an example. If you're working for a company and they don't have a test environment, they're like, "Oh, test this software." Then you're like, "Okay, are we going to be testing in production? Because it's dangerous to be testing in production. You don't want to be testing in production, right?" So you could ask, okay, for this stuff we want to do, we need our own test environment. So please, company, can you set up a test environment for us so that when the developers build new stuff, they're going to deploy it first to the test environment so that we can test it here first. And if it passes, then we take it to production. So this is the way almost all companies work. So Tesla, before you ever see any car driving on the street, it first went to a test environment where they test it for speed, they test it for accidents, they test it for everything, and if it passes the requirements, then they're like, okay, we're ready for it to go to production. And production for Tesla means we're ready to send it to dealers so that dealers can start selling the cars. So this is also how test the work. And that is what the test plan is going to help you figure out. If you have the resources, you have the right people, do you have the right tools, do you have the environments that are needed, platform, operating system, browsers, do you have all of that available? And also another important thing is it also helps you to uh, look at budget, right? So the cost of the tool, how much it costs, or stuff that you guys need, you'll be able to look into that. And of course, scheduling is also an important uh, sorry, what am I saying? So budget is part of the resources actually that you might need because they might be like, okay, we need new developers, we need more people, and then it will also help the team to understand how much that would cost. Now, another key component of a test plan is scheduling. So a schedule outlines the timeline of the testing activities, which includes milestones and deadline. Now, an example would be like, okay, on week one, we'll write the test plan. On week two, we'll be writing the test cases. On week three and four, we'll be executing the test and reporting. Nayeli, we'll be on week three, we'll be testing and also reporting defects. Maybe on the final day, we'll be wrapping up and closing test process. So this is could be like an example of your schedule that you'll find in a test plan. So you can see all of this will give you more of a roadmap to how you will be performing a specific kind of test. Are there any questions so far? Okay, so what have we looked at up until now? Let's cancel this. what have we looked at up until now? Because we're going to take a 5 minutes break, right? So the first thing we looked at is why it's important to have test plans and documentation. So clarity, risk management, resource allocation, traceability. So you see, we started talking about most of this stuff in depth, right? Um, we also, let me see, uh, talked about, let's see, structure, no, not the structure. So we started talking about test plans and writing test cases. And now we started focusing on what are the key questions a test plan will help us solve, what to test, how to test, who will test, and when to test. And then we started looking at key components of a test plan, scope, which means in the broad picture, what are we going to focus on? Instead of focusing on everything, what are we going to focus on? Give us a scope. You understand? You don't want you don't want anybody to say testenquete.com. Okay, wait. Testenquete.com. That's going to take us a very long time, and you want us to finish next week. Please, can we scope this? You understand? So when you say please, can we scope this? You're saying please, can we can we define what to focus on instead of us to focus on everything? Because you're saying next week. So what can we focus on from now to next week? So that's the scoping. It also helps us to get clear objectives, resources. We'll be able to identify the resources we need, and also helps us with proper schedule. So that's the key components of a test plan. And we're going to see an example of what that will look like. So for now, let's take a 5 minutes break and everybody get some cup of tea, cup of water, and I'll see you guys at 10:35. All right? See you guys later. All right. So welcome back from short break. So now we'll be talking about how to write what are the components of an effective test case and or probably also how to write it. So test cases, which we have also looked at quite often in our last trainings, but like I said, we are trying to repeat some of these things and also dive a little bit deeper. So test cases are detailed step-by-step instructions for executing specific tests. Now, they ensure, or these test cases ensure consistency, repeatability, and clarity, especially when working in a team. So when you write a proper test case, you can take that test case, you can give it to somebody else or give it to another tester, and the tester will test it exactly the same way uh, you tested it. And you can send it to another tester, and they will test it also exactly the same way. And that's what why test cases are very important. Now, what are the components of a test case? Now, components of a test case has a case identifier, a case. Oh, sorry. This is not supposed to be like this. So it's more like this. So a test case comprises of one, a test case identifier, and usually that is a unique ID to make it easier to track a given test case. Um, it also contains a description. A description is a brief summary of what the test case verifies. Precondition. There's a condition that must be met before running the test. Steps, which are mostly detailed sequential actions to perform the test. The expected results, this is mostly the outcome expected after performing the test or the test steps. And the post condition. The post condition is more of a cleanup action required after the test is completed. And if we go to the next slide, we will see actually something like this, which is quite familiar. So this is a, let me see. Sorry, I wanted to show you guys this one. So this is a test uh, a test case for creation of a to-do list, and these are some of the things we've played around with before. So you see, we have the unique ID, the description, verify the user can successfully create a new task, precondition, the user must be logged into the application. Now these are the test steps. Open the to-do list application, click on add button, enter a task title and description, click the save button. And what is the expected result? The new task is displayed in the task list. The post condition ensure the task remains visible in the list after you refresh. So this is a typical example of a test case, and this is something we have looked into quite a lot. Um, let's see what I think I have another example here. So this is an example of a test plan as well. So I think it's also nice for us to look at this. So this is a test plan of a to-do list. So you remember we talked about the advantages of a test plan and the components. So you have scope, objective, resources, and schedule. Now a test plan for to-do list. So you see the scope is test core functionality, which is task creation, updating, deletion, and completion. So you see, this is scoped to this, the scope that this to-do list test would focus on. So we're not saying test if you can send email to the administrator. We're not testing a contact list. We're not testing every other thing. This is the scope. The scope is just focused on task creation, updating, deleting, and completion. Exclude third party integration. That means, okay, don't test anything about, okay, send this to my Google list. Because third party, when you hear the word third party, it means another software that is not part of your software that is coupled to your software. So, for example, if the to do list is coupled with Google Drive, Google Drive is third party. If the to do list is connected with, what do you call it? What are that? Say, Dropbox. Dropbox is third party because that's a different company. They're doing a different thing, and they have probably an API that you can use to connect that with your own software. So all of that is third party. So, and you see the scope is saying, okay, we're not testing any of those third party. And you also see here we have objective. Now, an example of an objective here is one, validate functionality and performance under load. So that means there's going to be a performance test, or what this is supposed to help figure out. The test for this to-do list is the functionality is working well? Can it also work well when there's a lot of users using it at the same time? And also identify and report usability issues. That's also the objective. You want to find issues, you want to report them. The resources. You see, an example of resources is for the team. We need 3 test engineers to be able to accomplish this test. The tools you need: Windows 10, Mac OS environment with Chrome, Firefox, Edge browser. So these are the tools you need. Every tester should have these tools. Now imagine these tools are not available. What do? You start telling your employer, or you telling your team that, listen, we don't have these tools. Please, can you provide them? Budget. Budget. Let's see, funding for any required testing tool. In case some of the testing tools are not there, you'll be able to, the team will be able. I mean, the resource manager will be able to be like to calculate how much is needed to be able to get this tools needed, or even if you don't have enough testers, he'll be able to calculate and be like, okay, we need to employ more people. These are also most of the reason why people get employed. People get employed. So you can imagine, all of a sudden Coca-Cola is looking for new testers. Why are they looking for new testers? Have they not been testing for the past 10 years? They have. But the issue now is they probably have a new project going on. Somebody wrote a test plan and realized they need 3 testers, but actually all their 50 testers are already occupied. They need 3 testers. Guess what? They're gonna come to you guys and be like, guys, we're looking for a tester. Ifine, Constance, Justin, Sumbo, are you guys open to apply for this job position? This is mostly because they check the resources and they realize they need more people. So that's very important that test plans are done, because this kind of things you can see them beforehand. Now scheduling, as you see here, this is also an example of what scheduling look like. You're like, okay, for us to be able to finish all of this, this is our plan. From the 1st to 5th of October, we're going to be writing our test plan. From the 6th to 10th of September, we're going to be writing the test cases that we need for the testing. And from 10 to 15, we're going to execute these test cases that we've done. That is under the assumption that the software has been built already by this date. And also, we're going to report any defects. Then from 26th to 30th, we're going to do a final testing and wrap up. So this is your test schedule, and all of this you'll find inside a test plan. With this plan now, this looks like more like a roadmap now for you to know, okay, this is what we need, this is where we start, this is what needs to be achieved, these are the objectives and all of that. So very important that a tester knows how to write a test plan, what to find in a test plan, or in most cases, writing a test plan with your fellow colleagues. So let's see. So we already looked at this. So I also want to give you guys a small tip. for writing, or some tips to writing an effective test plan, right? Just give me a minute. So, here are some tips for writing an effective test plan. First, you want to be clear and concise. So, yeah, you see, this is, if I gave you this as a test plan, as you see, it's not too much words, or it's not like what do you call it? It's not a Bible. You're not writing too much. You just, someone needs to be able to look at it, read it, and understand what needs to be done. See, it's quite straight to the point. You understand what needs to be done. So be clear and concise. Use simple, straightforward language. For example, instead of saying proceed to the login interface, you write navigate to the login page. You're very clear, you're very precise. Two, be specific. Provide precise details to avoid ambiguity. You don't want to be ambiguous. For example, if you go to the Enquete website, I mean to the Pickaxe website, you could be like, uh, so take a look at this. Uh, so we have start now, we have a start now button here, and we also have a get start now button, right? So if I said, if I say go to the Pickaxe website and click on the red button to start now, or to start or to log in, let me put it like that. Click on the red button to log in. That's ambiguous because we have one red button here, we have another red button here, we have another red button here. So that's not what you want to do in your test case. You want to be specific. You want to be precise. You want to say, click on the red button on the top left corner, that, or click on the register, or the red register button on the top left right corner. You see, that's very precise. The person knows, okay, you have to go to the website, look at the top right corner, and look for the red button called register. Or click on the register, on the start now, on the red start now button that is in the middle of the page, of the top page. So it's very precise. The person is not going to be like, okay, let me scroll down. No, you said top, you said middle, you said the label, the button is red, and you said it's labeled start now. So you want to be specific, you want to be precise when you're writing your test cases. Ensure testability. So you want to write test cases that can be executed independently with clear pass and fail criteria. Um, Guys, please just give me a minute. I have to pick this call. It's quite important. Just give me a minute. Okay. So, what were we talking about? So, let me just pull back my script. So, we're talking about tips for writing effective tests. So, we talked about ensure testability. So, you want to write test cases that can be executed independently with clear pass and fail criteria. So you want to avoid, you want to avoid combining multiple test scenarios in one case. So let's take a look at this test case. So, um, for example, you don't remember the test. This test case is to verify that the user can successfully create a new task. You don't want to be you don't want to write a test case that is testing a new task but also testing delete at the same time in the same test case. No. A delete should have its own test case. A creator should have its own test case. You don't want to mingle two different test cases. It needs to be clear. You need to be like, okay, if I follow this test case, there's a clear pass, there's a clear fail. Not that uh, not that, for example, you'll be like, okay, I can create a task, but I cannot delete it. Those are two different test cases. It should be yes, I can create a task, or no, I cannot create a task. And then you have another test case that says yes, I can delete a task, or no, I cannot delete a task because it failed. So you want to ensure testability. That's very important. Now, also, another tip is to include precondition and post conditions. Now, if you clearly state setup requirements and cleanup steps, that really helps. For example, like we saw here in this example here, you see the precondition is that the user must be logged in. So yeah, that sets the tone of where your test is going to start from. And the post condition, for example, is here. It says ensure the task remains visible after you refresh. So when you refresh it, you'll be like, okay, it also shows that it's actually been done. Sometimes a post condition could also include for you to delete what you have added. That's also a cleanup process because you don't want to have like a lot of. Imagine you're going to test run that test maybe 1,000 times, then you have 1,000 new reports. So if you want to also make sure that you don't keep unwanted test cases or test procedures in your application, you can also add a cleanup to this post condition by writing maybe delete, click on delete to clear record or something. So, but that will be specific to what you intend to do. So what other tip do we have? We also have you want to also keep your test case maintainable. So you want to decouple test data from the test case. Use separate sections or documents for testing for test data to simplify updates when requirements changes. So what we are learning here is in your test case, you don't want to put in data directly into your test steps. I know in some cases we did that in our last test, but what if you want to make your test maintainable, you want to keep your data in a separate document. So sometimes I see testers use Excel documents for that. So you want to refer to an Excel document and be like, okay, go to that Excel document and get the username and password that you want to use for this test, so that in case something changes in the uh, in the in the data, maybe the login changes, you don't have to come here to come and be changing your test cases anymore. You just need to go to your data where you have your data and just change the username and password if that's what changes. So the idea is you want to make it maintainable, separate your your document from your test data. So that's the suggestion we are uh, getting also from this test if uh, from this tip, right? So what are the key takeaways I want you guys to take from this section? So in this section, we explored test plan, uh, the components of a test plan. We looked at the scope, objective, resources, and schedule. That those are all components of a test plan, and the importance in guiding the test process. So test plan is very important because it serves as a roadmap of all your test processes, right? We also looked at test cases and the components of test cases. A test case has an ID. So let me pull the example back up. It has an ID, a description, the steps, expected results, and a lot more, and how they serve as step-by-step guide to testing, right? So we've played around with this, but you see now we're focusing more into it. We are learning that you want to write your test case and separate your data from your test case, right? We also looked at tips for writing test case. You want to ensure that it's clear, specific as possible. You want to make it maintainable. So if we apply these concepts to our tests, we ensure that testing becomes more systematic, it becomes thorough. That's what we want, and it aligns with the project goal. Now we're gonna move to the final part for today, which is a lab. This lab, you guys are gonna work on it by yourself, and please work on these labs and send me a report what you've worked on before our next training. So what is this lab about? So like I told you, we'll be building a whole new website or application for enquete.com. It is something that I'm currently working on. So we have the enquete.com here, but all of this will go. I'm building this from scratch again. And this is what I want you guys to do. So I want you guys to write a test plan for the new enquete.com. So you see, we're gonna do that same test plan thing we looked at here. I believe also I sent you guys a document. So I sent you guys a document last time, I think with an example of a test plan, but I'll also still post this on the app just to for you guys to also have an idea or an example of what a test plan looks like. I'm also going to post an example of a test case that we talked about so you guys can use that as a reference. So let me post it on the WhatsApp as well. Good. So let's go back to the lab. So I want you guys to write a test plan for the new enquete.com. And I want you guys to write a test case for registration page and log in. Are there any questions if you look at this test plan? Are there any questions? I mean, if you look at this, this lab, do you have any questions? Raise up your hand, please, if you have a question. Okay. I was expecting everyone to raise up their hands. Okay, I'm seeing three hands. Who else? All right, so let's start with Sumbo. What's your question? Exactly. That's what I wanted to hear. What are the requirements? You don't want to just hear test
Um,
registration page. What
what
are
are
the
the
requirements? And
requirements?
like we remember, we also talked about scoping, huh? So even though I say test the login page, that would also me as the one giving the assignment would also help when I give the requirement, is also going to help to create a scope for it. So I think the login page is all of this. So when I write the requirements, it's going to help us focus on a specific part of it, on a scope of it. So good. Remember, scope is a subset of the big picture or the whatever you're testing. Even login has a scope, registration has a scope, and ket.com has a scope. I mean, you can also use scoping for all of this stuff. So good. So what are the requirements? And the requirements I'll be sending in to the chat. I just put it this way because I wanted you guys to ask that question. It's very important. Don't just go into testing. You want to ask what is what are the requirements? And from the requirements, you also figure out what the scope is. And sometimes if the scope is not clear, you want to ask, okay, are we expected to test this as well? Are we expected to test that as well? And sometimes if you even notice it's just too much test, you as a tester, I think it's very good to say, okay, guys, let's scope this thing. It's getting out of hand. It's just too much. We have just 1 week. Can we create a scope for it? And when you say yes, when you bring that question, when you put it forth, it will force the team to be like, okay, let's remove this one. Let's not test this one. Let's not test this one. Let's just focus on this part. So yes, I will be writing out a requirement for this. I will send it into the chat, and yeah, so one other thing I will do is, or I want to do is, or we will do it next week. So I will, um, I will try for us to do that. So last time, you remember, we created an Azure account. Let me see, what was that again? We created a DevOps account, and I think everyone is already a member. So the things we are going to do. So first of all, we're going to write those test plans and all of that, and then eventually, let me see. So eventually, we're going to come in here, and so let's see. Do we even have a test? Oh yeah, we have a part for a test plan. So you see that we have a test plan here. So um, yeah. We're also going to look into how to use the Azure for your test plans. But also, another thing that is also quite important that I want us to learn, or I want you to teach you guys, is whenever you run your test and you find an issue or you find a problem, you come into the backlog here, and we are going to create what you call a bug. So you see this? So if you come here, you can just play around with it, but I'm gonna show you guys how this works. So you come here and you say you could give it a title. So you can put the name of your test case. So let's say TC001, and you can say login fails. Maybe that's what you experienced, and you see it creates an item for you here. And when you click on it, a pop-up comes in, and here you can put your steps to reproduce. So you can say login failed, and then you can use your str means steps to reproduce, and then you now try to describe what you did. So you say go to nked.com, um, click on the login page, blah blah blah. So this is what the developers will use to uh, reproduce the error and fix it. So we're going to learn how to use this tool. This tool is very popular. It's very popular, and I want you guys to. I do intend to start showing you guys how to use it, and we're going to use it also in our test process, so that I will. It will just inevitably prepare you guys for the real world, for what you're going to go and work on. Like you remember last time I showed you guys, most of the job openings they always ask if you have experience with Azure DevOps and all of that. So you need to know how to use these tools instead of yeah. Of course, you as testers, you're gonna still use a lot of Word document to write your test cases. You're also gonna use I see a lot of people also use Excel, but a lot of times you find that you'll be using this tool from Microsoft to do a lot of your testing. And this is also a tool that helps you work with the developers very well. So I'm going to do that, and we're going to have a very fun time working using these tools and also learning how to write very good tests. And hopefully, we're going to be doing real world stuff and get hands on experience. So that's it. Do you have any questions for me? Please ask if you have any questions or raise up your hand. All right, Justin has a question.
Yeah, my question would be regarding the test plan. Um, is it like I don't, in my opinion, I don't think every tester should have like
Hmm.
a unified kind of test plan, if I understand correctly. Like in this case, we are in this class together and we're going to run the test for um, enquete, for example. So if we are going to have a plan, is it just to make sure that our plan have these components that we have
Okay,
discussed
that's a
about
very good
during
question.
this
So
section, or
remember, in this
everyone is
class, I
allowed
want to
to
teach you
like,
guys how to
you
do
know,
things
have
independently.
his own personal
But
plan?
in the real world setting, you're going to be working with your test team. So if you're in a team, it doesn't make sense that we have five test plans. No, you're gonna have just one test plan. The only thing is the five of you will collaborate and write it. So that probably how it's gonna happen is Constance is gonna write the test plans, send it to Chinonso to review. Chinonso is gonna add some more things or say, oh, can we change this? Send it to Obina. Obina does some adjustments like that, and maybe you guys make a meeting and say, okay, this is the final product. Do we want to change something? Is there something I'm missing? You guys will uh, accept the final product, and that will be your test plan. But for this test I'm doing, I want you guys to work on it individually. Use the stuffs we have learned. Think about things outside the box. Put it in. The point there is it should contain this part. It should have a scope. It should have an objective. It should have a resource. You should look into resources. You should look into the scheduling. This would also probably prompt some questions. So just by looking at this now, you're supposed to have a question. You understand? Because there are some information that you probably should have in your in your test plan that probably I haven't given you yet, or that is not specified. So by virtue of writing a test plan, you will come with questions that will create more clarity. Do you understand? Just like we know that, oh, if you did not sit down and plan your wedding, you would not know that maybe Coca-Cola is going to be, and you want to like hire a whole van of Coca-Cola. Without sitting down, you would probably not realize that the date you wanted to do your wedding, Coca-Cola is on vacation that day, as an example. So by writing your text plan, you also realize that there's some information that probably me as the analyst, as a business analyst, I didn't provide, and that will make you be like, okay, guys, sorry, how long? When are we delivering? How long is it gonna take? When do you expect this product to be done? When I tell you when this product is expected to be done, then probably that gives you more insight into your scheduling. Huh? Like, okay, so since you want it to be done next week, okay, this is how I think this stuff is going to happen. Or maybe the test case creation is only for this week, but the actual test is sometime later, then you know how to plan and maybe every other thing. So I want you guys, everybody, to just have an experience of writing it themselves. Now as we go on, I'm going to start pairing you guys in teams because that would also help you learn how to work as a team. There's a lot of collaboration that is needed when you're in a DevOps team. You want to work with your team. There's no solo game show in DevOps. No, you work as a team. You collaborate a lot. You make a change here. You send to your colleague. You say, colleague, look at what I changed. Do you have any feedback? Should I correct something? Am I missing something? That collaboration we're also going to do. But for now, I just want you guys to learn these things. Let it be a part of you so that when you work in the real world and somebody sends you a test plan, you know what you're looking at and you know what you are expected to do. And you'll be like, okay, what about, for example, what about this? Is this missing? Is that missing? Now, I also want to say something. In a lot of test plan, you probably might not see this part, budget. You understand? Budgets might, in most cases, you will not see budget because budget is mostly, in most cases, handled by a different team. However, what you would probably do is you realize that probably for this test you need three testers, you need five testers, you need two testers. And when you take this requirement and you look at your team and you're like, oh, we only have one testers, but based on the requirement and based on when they want us to finish this stuff, I think we need three. This will help you to send a message back to your team manager or back to your PO and say, listen, guys, we need two more testers because we just have one. And that will make the product owner to send the message back to the budgeting team and say, guys, can you find us two more testers? You need to hire two more testers now because we need them to be able to meet our deadline. So in a lot of cases, you might not see budgeting in the stuff, but just for this scenario, for this lab, I want you guys to just try to implement everything we've learned so that you just get used to it. I don't know, does that answer your question or am I a little bit far off? All right, that's a thumbs up. Any other question before we round up for today? Okay, so I don't see any hands up. So what am I going to be doing? So I'm going to send you guys what do you call it? I'm going to send you guys the requirements for the lab later today. I also sent you guys some. I sent you guys some what do you call it? Some documents last week. So look through it. I hope it's going to start making sense with based on what we just discussed. And yeah, I will see you guys next week. Have a great weekend, guys. And now.